What drives you? Have you ever thought about why you do the things that you do? Like your why behind what you do. But really, on some level, this is how I have always lived my life. I questioned everything. I was the kid that always asked why and kept asking why. I was the kid that kept pressing for answers. I was the kid that loved the encyclopedia and writing papers. I was also a bit of a storyteller, and that's in my bloodline. My dad was a storyteller. He always had stories to tell. Even towards the end of his life, he told stories. He always embellished his stories, but when his dementia got worse, the embellishments became straight lies. But they were true in his mind. I've been thinking about death a lot lately. With my dad's passing last year, I recognized how much of who I am has been something that I have learned from my parents or something that I have inherited from my parents. I wrote him a letter that I read to him just hours before he transitioned. I recognized all the things about me that I learned from or inherited from him. It also forgave him for the parts of me that I never shared with him in fear of abandonment, another inherited behavior. I felt like I finally shared all that I needed to share with him. In sharing that letter, I learned that so much of who I am was also my dad. His storytelling, his belief in holistic medicine, his discipline, his love of basketball, his work ethic. I also realized how much he and my mom had in common. Their resiliency, their perseverance, putting others before themselves, even at the detriment of others. Scratch that. Even at the detriment of themselves and their fear of abandonment. Some of these inherited traits I had been struggling with, things that had got me here, but I no longer felt were serving me. A dear friend of mine said, "You may have inherited these traits, but it's up to you whether or not you want to continue them or not." That struck me in the chest in the best possible way. It was a reminder of a concept that I knew, but it was like the puzzle pieces finally clicked. The correct key was entered and the next level unlocked. The Tetris tiles lined up and made space for more. It reminded me that we create the stories and we can change the stories of how we view our life and the things that have happened in our lifetime. We can have them support us or bring us down. We can be the victim or the hero, all based on our perception and the story we tell ourselves. That we can change our brain chemistry through changing our thoughts, vibrations, and energies, as well as using plant allies like psilocybin. That it just takes the awareness and the want to change in order for the change to begin. Is it a practice? Yes. Does it happen overnight? No. Even with plant allies? Yes, you still have to integrate. So what does that all have to do with your why? Well, it's your story. Why do you do what you do? What is the story you're telling yourself? What's your why? If you're interested in learning why you do what you do, like why do you work, or why do you love running, or why are you vegan? Because it's always deeper than the first answer. Write out or ask a friend to help. Ask yourself why, and whatever it is you want to learn a bit more about why you do what you do. With that answer, ask the why again. Do this until the seventh why. This seventh why is the real/root reason of why you do that thing you do. Yeah. So for an example, this morning I felt a trigger moment in regards to someone breaking trust with someone else. So my why is, why do I get upset when people betray trust? Because my dad betrayed my trust as a kid. Why did my dad betray my trust as a kid? Because he thought I wouldn't hold him to a promise. Why did he think that I wouldn't hold him to a promise? Because I was a kid. Why didn't he think that a kid could hold someone accountable? Because he didn't give kids enough credit for how emotionally intelligent they are. Why didn't he give kids enough credit to their emotional intelligence? Because he didn't know enough about his own emotional intelligence. Why didn't he know about his own emotional intelligence? Because he was taught that his feelings were not valid, not okay to feel. Why was he taught that his feelings were not valid? Because his parents were told not to feel, and then they became alcoholics and took their pain out on my dad. Betrayal of trust equals lack of emotional intelligence, equals suppressed feelings, equals inherited behavior. I once had a therapist who said that our anger is our own trauma fear triggered, but rage is passed down. I've experienced both. With the mistrust, I have definitely felt enraged, but it has shifted to anger, one step at a time in my healing journey. So, what's your why? For context, the time I felt betrayed by my dad was when I was in the 3rd or 4th grade. He promised me he would quit drinking. Not that he was an alcoholic or anything, but I was taught that alcohol was bad, so I didn't understand why he drank. I saw him drinking after a game one day, after he promised me he would stop. When we got home, I threw a fit. Ever since that day, he stopped drinking. He made it a point to not disappoint me ever again in that regard, and would bring up that story anytime someone offered him a drink. It was almost as if it was a reminder to himself not to drink, because he cared about his kids.